temple, there was a copy of the Torah
When was it forever? So you're saying
from the time of the Torah.
So you're saying from the time of Moses until today there is a master copy somewhere.
No, what I'm saying, this is what the Jews believe. I'm not saying I believe.
No, but wait. When did the Jews ever say this?
Master copy.
When did they ever say this?
When I read it from a Jewish site. This is common knowledge. Maybe next time we'll ask, because there were some Jews who were here. There was a master
If
copy.
there is any Jew who has a master copy,
no, they don't have it.
Wait. If there is any Jew who has a master copy that dates all from the time of Moses, that Jew will be the richest person. All right. In fact, a Christian. Trust me. In fact, a Christian who has the earliest manuscript anywhere from the New Testament, from within 100 years of Jesus, will also be the richest man. The reason they don't have this...
Hashim, I know where it came from. I typed in the history of the Torah. And in the history of the Torah, it shows very clearly that you had the prototype Torah from which, because it talks about how the scribes wrote down the Torah, and they took it very, very seriously, a little bit like the Quran. They would say it every jot and tittle, etc., etc. And the way that they replicated Torah was trained scribes would spend years and years and years in learning how to write properly, would write from the master copy, and from the master copy, other copies would be disseminated. That's how it worked.
Well,
now, what I'm trying to say, can I just finish this, Hashim? What I'm struggling to understand is, how could an incident of some people somewhere at some time who altered some of the Torah all of a sudden infect every single Torah scroll in every single synagogue throughout the whole of the Judaic diaspora, which extended all the way from Gaul, this is at 580, you can see the extent. How can an incident, presumably in Arabia, all of a sudden, without the Jews knowing, suddenly corrupt all of the copies right down to the story of Genesis?
How do you know it's without the Jewish knowing? How do you know it's without the Jewish knowing? There are many rabbis who would agree with my narrative about the scriptures being corrupted. Now you see, just because you might have read on a website of a Jewish website that they have this master copy, which is very elusive that many rabbis don't know about it, let alone the Muslims and the Christians.
But it makes sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. I would be it's not logic at all. In fact, this to me this is something which is just a myth. Yeah, it's a myth. It's a myth to make such an assertion. Because if there was such a copy, why doesn't anyone talk about it? Especially the academics amongst the Jews and the rabbis among them, they do not know this. Now, in order for you to actually believe this, then you need to have evidence for it.
I'll bring some.
Well, till then, let's reserve.
Hashim,
our judgment that they are the true.
I'm still to find clearly and explicitly in the Quran where God, when he had the opportunity to say do not believe in the books, actually chose a route, and I can read you the other. Would you like to hear some of the other statements as well?
Well, I've shown you one evidence. If that is not clear, I don't know what is.
No, but
can I ask you, why is the 279 not clear to you? Which part of it is not clear?
Because I can't extrapolate from that one sentence the corruption of all of the Torah scrolls throughout the whole of Judea.
Why not?
Tell me how. How did this group of people, presumably unscrupulous people of not very high standing, who did alter it and sell it for a high price, the one they sold for a high price suddenly must have had like a bacteria that infected hundreds of Torah scrolls to make them all corrupt, and that was without the oral tradition that buttresses, they had a history and a knowledge. You could have people who could recite the Torah in those days. How this all happened on their watch with nobody knowing.
But that is what I'm telling you. Before you make these statements and claims that they were preserved very meticulously by the scribes and by the rabbis, where is the evidence for that? I've given you evidence from the hadith, how they were preserved. I've given you evidence about the Quran, how it's been preserved. You, so far, Collin, I'm afraid to say, have not given any evidence of this chain of narration, the chain of preservation of the Torah or the Injil. Where? We don't have any.
I think my point was, I can't extrapolate from that one statement.
I didn't say that's the only statement. I can give you more.
You give me two.
I can give you more if you want.
Could I give you some that would seem to contradict?
It's sort of
Could I give you some that seem to contradict? We've got 546, and we send following in their footsteps, Jesus, the Son of Mary, confirming that which came before in the Torah. We gave him the gospel in which is guidance and light. Now, when Allah says that there is guidance and light in the gospel, you're telling me that the gospel was corrupt. Why? It would be very easy for Allah to actually say, forget all of this, do not believe in those books. However, as an article of faith, you're required to believe in the Torah and the Injil and the Quran. And it says here, Allah is giving you clear instructions to believe in it. But you say you don't have to on the basis of this.
Honestly, this guy's doing it again. Seriously.
Oh, well.
That's what he does. He destroys good arguments.
But yeah, I'm still to be convinced.
Okay, in Surah, in chapter Ma'idah, verse 46, it says, and we sent following in their footsteps. In whose footsteps?
If somebody
in the footsteps
is saying
of
that Allah is
Moses.
corrupting
Yeah, in the footsteps of Moses and the Jews, yes? And we sent following in the footsteps Jesus, the son of Mary, confirming that which came before him in the Torah. So it is Jesus who confirmed what came in the Torah, because he was given the knowledge of the Injil and the Torah both.
Which Torah is he talking about?
The Torah that was given to Moses.
The one that was in existence?
The Torah that was given to Moses.
But not because they were corrupt at the time.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual Torah that was given to Moses. Allah gave him the knowledge of that. So not the extant manuscripts in the time of Jesus. I'm talking about the Torah that was given to Musa alayhi salam.
The reason I disagree is because in 47 it goes on, it's 46, 47, O people of the book, believe in what we have now revealed, confirming what was already with you. That statement naturally reads, Jesus has come to confirm the Torah, and the people of the book believe what has now been revealed, confirming what was with you. It's saying there is something with you, it's not saying it's corrupt, something that you're required to believe in.
No, the answer is in 46. The answer is, shall I read it?
47 is the conclusion of 46.
I know, but the 46, the question to your, the answer to your question is in 46. Allah says there, and we sent following in the footsteps, Jesus, the son of Mary, confirming that which came before him in the Torah. And we gave him the gospel, the Injil, in which was the guidance and light, and confirming that which preceded it of the Torah. Wait. So where was it confirmed? In the knowledge of the gospel that was given to Injil. It says, in which was guidance and light, and confirming that which preceded it of the Torah. It doesn't say of the extant manuscript.
Corruption, the word corruption in all of these verses.
No, listen, you need to understand. I'll show you the corruption in 279. It's up to you to believe it as corruption or not. Wait, it does say, they wrote the words with their own hands, and then they attributed it to Allah to sell it for a miserable price.
I've yet to grasp how this
your Quran is translated in English as well.
There are other verses.
You're translated in English.
Because it says here, and we have revealed to you, O Muhammad, the book and truth, confirming that which preceded it, just like
my Bible is translated in many languages.
The Torah preceded it.
My God understands every language.
He was given the knowledge of it. Similarly, Muhammad was given the Quran and the book in truth, confirming that preceded it of the scripture as a criterion over it. So what is the criterion? What is the criterion here? The Quran. The Quran is called the Furqan. The criterion, which means the one which is guarding the falsehood. Yes? Sorry, guarding the truth from the falsehood. So because the Quran is the one which is the Furqan, this is the Quran we're talking about. So the Quran, Allah is telling us why the Quran is something superior in its status to the previous messages, because it is a criterion.
If I was a Muslim, I would agree with you.
Yeah, so of course, you asked me, show me from the Quran. I'm showing you from the Quran now.
As far as exegesis goes, to use the Quran as your exegetical tool and model to interpret the scriptures of the Jews and Christians is eisegesis, not exegesis.
Yeah, but we are not using it as an exegesis or eisegesis. We are using it as something which is a revelation from Allah, for which we have the manuscript and the oral tradition preserved, unlike the previous scriptures. Secondly, Allah has given in the Quran the preservation that He is the one who will preserve it. In Surah Al-Fussilat, He also says that these books, the previous messages, they have been altered by the hands of the scribes, which backs up to Jeremiah 8:8, which also says they had been corrupted by the lying pens of the scribes, who have altered the message of the Again?
It's specifying only the scriptures that have been written and then sold. If you are, so it's not all the scriptures, it's a specific subset.
That's because only specific people were tasked with writing the Torah. They were the scribes. And the scribes were the ones who corrupted.
You're extrapolating a huge...
Wait, it doesn't say some scribes, does it?
No, it does. Because you've got a subset of scribes who've written the scripture from God or from wherever it's come from. And then this the criticism, the subset of people who've written it and sold for money.
Yeah, but Allah doesn't say some of them.
It only says
They
behind
love
their
a savior.
not it's not all of them. It's woven with soul.
Okay, anyway, the important thing is that even if you use that that interpretation, the point still remains. To this day, there is no extant manuscript from the time of Moses. Number one. Secondly, the extant manuscript of the Torah that we have today, has a gap of 1,000, 1,100 to 1,200 years after. Yes, I think the Dead Sea Scrolls are probably the earliest. Yes. How can you have a gap of 1,000 years and still insist that they have been uncorrupted? Unless you can fill that gap.
I take the word of
No, it's not another argument. It's
take
not
the
the
word
same
of the
thing.
people.
We are talking about whether the message of Moses has come to us uncorrupted. Now,
Don't understand.
this is something which is an onus on you to prove to us that it has been unaltered. Because without the manuscript, without the oral tradition, you guys have nothing.
In Bukhari, it says here, and I'm going to say Waraka because that's the anglicised way we say Waraka, used to write the Arabic writing, and used to write of the Gospels in Arabic as much as Allah wished. So Allah inspired Waraka to write in Arabic the Gospels.
Okay, first and foremost, the term inspired is not there.
Okay.
You use the word. No, wait.
Bukhari.
Colin, let's be fair.
Authentic.
It doesn't say, yeah, of course, it's Sahih Hadith. I'm not saying no.
So this is true.
It doesn't say the word inspired. Allah for example, Allah wishes Colin to read how much of his written notes as he wishes, and Colin cannot do otherwise. So listen, wait.
He asked them to write corrupt
Colin,
verses.
wait. Just like the way you might be reading, either good and bad from your written notes, yes, you have been given the freedom to do that with your free will. Similarly, Waraka can write what he perceives is the gospel, yes, with his own hands in Arabic. It doesn't mean it matches with the truth.
Why would Allah ask him to write something down that wasn't true?
Where does it say Allah asked him to write?
That's what it says. Waraka used to write the Arabic writers, used to write 26 verses in Arabic as much as Allah wished.
So where does it say Allah made him write it?
Waraka would write the gospel in Hebrew as much as Allah wished him to.
That means Allah allowed him to write. Just like Allah
Wished him to suggests to me the natural inference of wished him to is pretty obvious.
Can I ask you something? Can you do something without the wish of God?
I don't know what you mean.
It's simple English. If you understood that English, I'm sure you'll understand mine. Can you do anything without the wish of God? You can. Without the wish of God. Tell me something you can do without.
I can turn against God. Every single sin I do.
Is that with the wish of God or without? Did God decree that you were going to do this?
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't ask you if you knew. I'm asking, did God decree that you will do that?
This thing that you're opening up now.
Are you going to answer my question, Colin?
No, because
Colin, can you answer my question? Can you
deflect from
listen? No, it's not deflecting. In fact, it's agreeing with what I'm saying because you seem to have some other understanding of the wish of Allah. When I'm asking you, the decree of Allah is the wish of Allah or not? So if Allah wishes for someone, listen, if Allah wishes for you, yes, to stand in Speaker's Corner on a Sunday today, yes, can you do otherwise?
if He wished me to.
Yeah, can you do otherwise?
I think as far as Christian theology goes in free will, I can always say no to God.
You can, no, that's called your free will. But what I'm asking, there's a difference between, I don't know if you understood the difference. The difference is this. What you wish or do not wish, yes, is irrelevant for God if He wishes you to do something.
To be honest, I think that's it.
Again?
He wishes you not to sin, but you do.
You both misunderstand a very simple statement I'm making. I'm saying, look, regardless of your wish, if God wants you to do something, do you have a say in it otherwise?
Well, I think you're not clarifying the
I'm
idea.
sure the Muslims
I'd like to
understood.
come. Can I just, so we can finish
The
this
decree
one
of
off?
Allah
You've
is
almost
something-
convinced me.
About
However,
what?
on this wish side of things, but I think if I was to read these statements and it's natural inference, and where it says as much as Allah wished him to, as much as Allah wished him to, as much as Allah wished him to, and he used to write them as much as Allah wished him to, I would see that as an inspiration from Allah to say to him, I want you to write
Shall I
it.
tell you why it's not
Tell
an
me why it
inspiration?
can't be that.
Why? Because it is like me saying, Allah wished Collin to read as much of his written notes as Allah wishes.
Yeah.
Now, does it mean Allah inspires you to read
Yeah,
that?
good point. If though, however, I wrote down something because God wished me to, I'd say that God prompted me to do that.
No. That
You don't
is.
say
Wait a minute. So when you say that Allah wishes you to write something, yes, that is what Allah has decreed for you. It's not an inspiration. Do you see the difference?
However, if I read,
Colin,
it of
Colin.
myself,
I think you're intelligent enough to know the difference between a decree and an inspiration. Am I right? Do you know the difference? Wait a minute. Do you know the difference between a decree of God and an inspiration of God? Do you know the difference? What is the difference? No, come on.
You're asking me a question now. I don't know
Colin.
what your meaning is on each of those
Colin,
words.
I'm sure your English is better than mine. Yes?
But as
And you
said,
understand the
they can
difference
have a
between a
variety-
decree and an
They can have a
inspiration.
variety of meanings depending on who you're talking to, as you said.
I'm talking to Colin.
I
What
think-
does Colin understand by
think-
decree and by inspiration?
So you're saying there then that
You know why he
Allah-
doesn't answer?
Allah- no, you're
Because
saying,
he knows exactly what I mean.
No, I don't. No,
So
I
why are you
don't.
not answering this
No, I
question?
don't. So you're saying to me, let me take on face value what you've just said. You're saying that these three verses from Bukhari that clearly say that Allah wished Baraka to write and he did write, had nothing to do with Allah telling him to. This is an effective
Yes. Allah doesn't. When Allah tells someone to do, that is called a revelation.
But it does mean that he stopped him writing.
No, he didn't
things-
stop you.
No, wait.
Just like he didn't stop you. Any of us.
Wait, he stopped him writing anything that was against Allah's wishes.
doesn't-
It was only with his wishes.
But that's
He
what
only
I'm trying to
wrote
tell you.
Yeah, he only wrote what Allah.
He wrote what he wanted, but
Oh my God! I don't know if you guys understand this. That is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. As a Muslim, I believe not even a leaf would fall from a tree without the permission of Allah. Not even a single leaf. You and I wouldn't breathe even once
I agree,
if Allah doesn't
100%.
So that is what I'm trying to tell you. When Waraka was writing this, yes, it is not because Allah told him to. It is because this is what Allah decreed for him.
Right.
Are you with me now? I don't know how much simpler I can
You
make
know what
this.
I'm struggling with? We have these three verses from Bukhari. We have the other verses saying believe in the book. We've also got where it's confirming that which is before. There are
I think we have talked enough about Waraka.
verses.
What is the point you're trying
no,
to make?
what I'm trying to say is, I don't think those two verses undermine all of this and your article of faith, believe in books. It would be so much more helpful if you could show me clearly in the Quran where Allah says do not believe in the books because you don't believe.
I've already told you. What is the Furqan? What is the Furqan? The Quran. The Quran is a criterion which supersedes a Furqan, a criterion in the terminology of the term Furqan. It's something that supersedes everything that preceded. So now the Quran is the one which is dictating what you should believe and should not believe.
So you don't believe that this is the Torah.
I don't believe that's the Torah.
Okay? And this is the Torah that is accepted by the Jews. The people
Well,
of the book, they
can
accept
accept it or reject it. That's
You
up to them.
reject it.
As far as a
You
Muslim
don't
is
want
concerned,
it? You don't want it?
As far as a Muslim is concerned,
Right.
the Torah is the one that which was revealed
Where
to
in the
Moses.
Quran does it say that you shouldn't have this and read it?
Where does it say that Tanakh?
Believe it, believe
Where does it say that Tanakh at all in the Quran? Nowhere.
Say that last bit again.
It doesn't say the Tanakh at all in the Quran. So your question is really
No,
illogical.
that's splitting hairs.
No, it is not. You're the one splitting
Do you
hairs.
believe my Greek New Testament is the Injil?
Is that the language of Jesus?
It's Greek.
I'm asking. Is that
It's
the
the
language
lingua
of
franca of the time.
Is that the language of Jesus?
It's the written language. No, this is important. I answer this because it's a really important
but you need to
question.
answer my question.
The lingua franca. The Greeks had sovereignty over the whole of Israel for 300 years. The written language, the written ancient language in Palestine, in Israel, at the time of Jesus was Greek. It
matter.
wasn't Hebrew.
It doesn't
Hebrew
matter.
was a sacred language reserved just for the temple. So yes, you reject this. This isn't the Injil.
Can I answer that?
Yes or
Can
no?
I answer? No.
You
Don't tell me yes or no.
No, I'm asking.
No, but
Would you
allow me to
yes?
answer the way I want.
Yes, you can.
Okay, good. First and foremost, there is no evidence that Jesus was preaching the Gospels in Greek.
He did. It was Aramaic.
Can I also? I didn't interrupt you.
You have done.
No, I
in
didn't.
the past,
Not
lots
in-
of times. Not that.
Only when Asif came here.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Picking up bad habits.
So you agree it was in Aramaic? You agree it's in Aramaic?
He spoke in Aramaic, but it was recorded in Greek.
Who recorded it in Greek?
I'm gonna tell you.
Who recorded it? Did he have any Greek disciples? Did he have any Greek disciples?
Thank goodness I've got this sort of the information.
Can you answer the question? Did he have any Greek disciples?
I think he had one.
He had one? Philip was Greek? Yes, and he was recording in Greek?
Presumably, if he was.
Well, don't give me presumptions, assumptions. I want category, because you see, Allah says in the Quran that He gave the Quran in Arabic to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ because that was his language. He did not give it to him in Chinese or in some other language, which wasn't his language. If there's no evidence that Jesus preached the Gospels in Greek or in any other language, yes, other than his language, then we cannot say that this language. The reason they always stick to Greek is because that is what they have as extant manuscripts today. That is all they can rely upon. You see the beauty about the Quran?
I've got it
Quran,
here.
we have the original language.
Hashim, I can answer.
Given to Muhammad, who was an Arab.
Judea. I will answer this. Could you just give me 1 minute to explain it? After Alexander, Palestine was ruled by the Ptolemies and the Seleucids for almost 200 years. Jewish culture was heavily influenced by Hellenistic culture, and Koine Greek was used not only for international communication, but also as the first language of many Jews. This development was furthered by the fact that the largest Jewish community in the world lives in Ptolemaic Alexandria. Many of these diaspora Jews would have Greek as their first language, and the first Torah, and then other Jewish scriptures late in the Christian Old Testament, were therefore translated into standard Koine Greek. But this is the most important part. 1,600 Jewish epitaphs, funeral inscriptions, are extant from ancient Palestine dating from 300 BC to 500 AD. Approximately 70% are in Greek. So if you went to a Jewish graveyard, you'd see the inscriptions in Greek. So what I'm trying to say to you is...
Can I just make a point about this? Can I just make a point? So it's good stuff. But what does it say? Jewish scriptures. What is the language of Moses? What is the language of Moses?
Hebrew.
Exactly. So why 70% of Jewish scriptures in Greek?
Because for 300 years...
What does it tell us?
I'm telling you, for 300 years, the Greeks ruled
I agree.
Judea.
But how many years after Moses was that?
Hardly likely to write in Hebrew.
But how many years after Moses was that?
Okay.
Answer?
Yeah,
Answer?
What's the point?
My point is, you know the point.
No, I don't. I haven't focused what your point is.
You don't have any idea what my point is. Okay, so Moses, listen. Moses came in with which? How many years before Jesus did Moses come? How many years
Are we
before?
talking about Greek?
No, I'm talking about Moses. How many years before Jesus did Moses come? You tell me. You don't know. You don't know when Moses came. 1,500 years. Thank you very much. Now wait. Listen to what that he said. Listen, wait. If you give me just a minute, I'll explain. I'll explain these the smoke screen that Collin here tried to enact.
Historical fact.
He says the most important point from what he read is the Jewish scriptures, which were all in Greek. Yes, 70% of them, and the date you gave was 500 BC. Yes, 500 BC. 500 BC is still 1,000 years less from the time of Moses. Because like you said, Moses came 1,500 years before Jesus. Listen to this. So 1,500 years. So after 1,000 years, they start writing in Greek. We still have a gap of 1,000 years.
No. The point was, did Jesus speak Greek, and why is your Greek New Testament
But you brought
in
us
Greek?
Jewish scriptures.
And I answered you by saying that Greek was the lingua franca, just like Latin had been the lingua franca in Britain, and still is for 1,000 years, because ancient languages don't change. That's why it was written in the lingua franca, ancient language of Greek, so that a maximum audience. So you saying that why is it written in Greek? I've just answered because Greek was the language at the time. It's spoken by the Jews.
Look, I'm not saying it's not the lingua franca. Listen to me. I'm not saying it was. The question wasn't about the lingua franca. The question was about in what language was it revealed originally to Moses and to Jesus. That was the question. Because to us Muslims, we know for a fact that the Quran was revealed in Arabic to an Arabic-speaking messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, so we have the original book in its original language. You used the term Aramaic. I did not say the term Aramaic. If Jesus' language was Aramaic, yes, which I'm not saying it wasn't, yes, then we have to believe that it's revealed to Jesus in the language. In this case, let's assume it's Aramaic. But the point is, it was in Greek. So your language can be lingua franca, can be Latin, can be any other language, even Chinese, I don't care. The point I'm trying to make is this. The original language was Aramaic in the case of the New Testament. The original language in the case of Moses was Hebrew. And if that is the fact, then we have to look for the original books in that original language. Everything else is what? A translation of the copy of X number of copies of the original. Now wait, Collin, I don't know if you realize the importance of this. If we do not have the original language, then you have to rely upon the interpretation of the interpreters. Do you know the name of any interpreter who interpreted it from Aramaic to Greek? Even one name?
What, the person actually wrote it down?
Yes.
Well, I just asked the same about the Torah. Do you know who wrote it
No,
down?
I'm not about the Torah, I'm talking about the Injil.
Well, we're both suffering from the same...
No, but I can give you about the Quran.
No, you can't tell me who wrote the
But I don't
Quran,
know.
who scribed it.
Look, I know. Zayd bin Thabit. Yes. Zayd bin Thabit is one of the... Can I give you more? Can I give you more scribes? We have got the names of at least 65 to 70 scribes of the Quran from the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have none, not even one. Am I right?
Yeah, what language did the scribes?
Now you have gone to another question.
Yeah, no, but I'm filling
Arabic.
in. No, what language were the original Christian scriptures written in?
To
The
us,
earliest one.
shall I tell you why?
What language?
Shall I tell you what? For us, it's not important. Because for us, the
You said it
Quran...
wasn't in Greek, and it was.
No, because
Starting the
you,
conversation
in fact,
saying it wasn't Greek, and I'm saying...
And you
well,
agreed
it
with
was
me.
Greek. No, I didn't agree with you.
You said it's
I
Arabic,
said,
the original language.
What we have a spoken language and a written language. We have Hebrew as the sacred language. We have Greek as the lingua franca, and Aramaic as the common spoken tongue. This is the situation historically at the time of Jesus. So there's no surprise that the earliest scriptures were written in Greek, and the evidence shows that what's the P, what's it of John, that passage, that's in Greek. It's all in Greek.
Can I ask you something, Collin? So you believe that the original language it was revealed in wasn't Greek, but the written language in which it was written was Greek. Am I right? Is that what you're saying?
The original language that it was transmitted in would have been Aramaic.
Okay, good.
Because
Remember that, everyone.
No, it was orally transmitted in Aramaic, which was a common tongue. However, the scribes recorded it in Greek. That's it.
Can you give me the name of one scholar who recorded in Greek? You see, this is where Collin really misses the point here. And this is not the first time. Not the first time. So you don't know the name of... Wait. You don't know the name of a single scribe who has actually transmitted it from Aramaic into... Did John, who was only a fisherman, did he know Koine Greek?
Okay. Can I answer? All I can do is give you what the Christians believe. I'm not giving you anything of my opinion. Now, if you're saying the Christians didn't believe that their scriptures were those scriptures, supply me with some scriptures they did have. I'm just transmitting what they believe to you. You can reject it, but this is what the Christians believe. Presumably, you believe in Christians. You believe they were Christians.
Wait. You did the same thing with regards to the Jews. You said the Jewish believe this, and now you're saying the Christian believe this. Look. Any Tom, Dick and Harry can come here and say we believe X, Y, and Z. If I was going to believe every one of them, you can understand the state of my iman. Yes? Now, Collin, with all due respect, as a person who studies and reads a lot of books, I think you should come to an understanding that you need to rely on the person, on the author who has written it, on the person who claims that he's written it, and on the person who claims he has interpreted it. Now wait a minute. If someone interprets Shakespeare from English into, say, Chinese or another language, yes, and if you don't know that language, yes, specifically if the interpreter himself is not fully well versed with the Victorian language or Shakespearean English that they spoke at that time, then would you not doubt the interpretation of that person?
Sure, I can see what you're saying. However, all I can do is say to you, these are the scriptures that the Christians held to be their scriptures. Look, that's it.
Which Christians?
And they were written in Greek.
No, I'm not saying...
Are you denying that these were the scriptures that the Christians accepted and they were written in Greek? Because everything I've said is true.
What I'm saying to you again and again is this. If the original language in which it was revealed by God to Moses and by God to Isa alayhi salam, peace be upon both of them, yes? And if somebody interpreted the original language, either Hebrew or Aramaic, into Greek, yes. By the way, do you know? I don't know if many Muslims know this. The earliest extant Greek manuscripts, the earliest extant Hebrew manuscripts of the Old Testament are also in Greek, which you correctly pointed out earlier. This is something that has been in the Septuagint, and the Septuagint, they say, is even dated before the Dead Sea Scrolls.
About 300 BC.
Yeah, so this is the earliest extant manuscripts of the Old Testament, which originally were in Hebrew, are also in Greek. And that is and I don't know why, I don't know if you know this, in fact, majority of the Hebrew scholars they reject this early extant manuscript in Greek. You know why? Because they are not in Hebrew. So they would rely on the late manuscript, which I believe is the 10th century, the Masoretic text. Yeah. So they accept the Masoretic text, which is 1,000 years after Jesus. But after Moses, it's in the 10th century or 11th century. Some of them say the Masoretic text, and these are in Hebrew. They would accept that only on one condition. You know what? Because they are in Hebrew. This is exactly what the Muslims are saying. We put faith in the original language, yes? And to us, alhamdulillah, we have the original language of the Quran preserved to this day. Unlike Collin and unlike our Jewish friends who do not have it preserved in the original language. So he doesn't have it in Aramaic, and the Jews do not have it in Hebrew.
You made a mistake, wasn't it?
Well,
you saying that the original Gospels were not written in Greek.
I'm saying the original language, I don't know how many times I've repeated this, the original language in which Jesus taught and in which it was revealed to Jesus was not Greek. Have I got that clear?
Yeah, you've got that.
Good. So the original language in which, for example, if I'm teaching you...
It's not difficult to write in Greek from Aramaic.
Colin, shall I tell you why? You know there's something called lost in translation? What does it mean? Come on, this is an English phrase.
I get you.
It's an English phrase.
No. So
it happens many times.
Does it always happen?
Okay, I'll give you...
Hang on, these people are fluent in all of them. What you're trying to suggest is some spoke Aramaic but didn't understand Greek, and this is where they're...
Who's fluent in all of them? Who's fluent in all of them?
Aramaic,
the guy whose name you don't know?
But no, those who could write wrote in Greek, and they could easily translate from Aramaic. Would you say that's a problem?
Colin, with all due respect, I'll tell you where the problem is.
You're making it sound like it's a huge...
It is actually, you know why? For a person who doesn't even know the name of the scribe, he knows his profession, he knows all three languages. Can you believe that?
No, I don't understand.
You don't even know the guy's name.
Okay.
Do you know his first name?
Are you asking me to reject the Christian scripture?
I'm asking you to give me evidence that the teaching of Jesus is perfectly preserved from his original language into Greek or any other language.
Okay.
That's all I'm asking you. Can you do this? Can you give me evidence that it was perfectly preserved without alteration, without being lost in translation? Yes. For example,
I'll tell you why, because it was never questioned. If you can
Who
show
told
me,
you it's not?
you show me some evidence where it was ever questioned within the earliest Christian community.
Shall I tell you what?
The books they had were anything.
You know, if you read,
assuming they were Christians.
If you read the scholars, like for example, Bart Ehrman makes a very important point. Well, he's a scholar more than you and me.
Well,
I'm not a scholar at all, actually.
Let's see.
He's got a quote by Bart Ehrman, a selective quote, like all Christians do.
You're gonna quote Bart Ehrman. Go on, carry on.
I know you'll quote a selective quote from him.
No.
Yes, and I'll quote something from him as well, which will completely destroy what you quote.
Trump.
Because I know what you will quote.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Bart Ehrman made a very important point. He said there were fishermen amongst the disciples of Jesus. Yes? I don't know, it was John the Baptist, not John the Baptist, John the disciple who basically wrote one of the Gospels. Allegedly wrote one of the Gospels. Was he a fisherman?
Was he one of the original ones?